L to EOW.
This is a paper map, kids.
I started last night in Lewisburg and drove up to somewhere like in here. No, like right in here. It was a hard night travel. Didn't feel very good. So now I went through Hillsboro and now I'm taking 39. This is where the lady at the visitor center there at New River said this was a nice place to be. So
Reading a map. This is a paper map, kids.
In the eye of the hurricane, you are always still. How will you hold me when the pain comes like this? She looked me in the eye, betrayed me with a kiss. She said, "You cannot walk on water with a tongue sharp to kill." In the eye of the hurricane, you are always still.
Yes! Yes! Yeah! Woo! Shelter! Shelter! Not just shelter, but that. This is art. I got my boots on the ground. I got my boots on the ground. I got my boots on the ground.
Have you ever been on a long journey? Have you ever been not sure of where you're going to sleep tonight? I heard a teaching which said, go to the places that scare you. Go out past the point of no return, said the great teacher. There are many faces in which the great teacher may manifest. Who are your greatest teachers today? Have you witnessed that great teacher as it arises in you? Just who do you think you are? Did you really believe that you were less than divine? That great teacher is you. These are the lessons that we learn when we follow the instructions of the great teacher. Initiations. Sell all your shit, give to the poor, come back, then we'll talk. This is what Jesus said to a rich young man. Have you ever followed the teachings of a cosmic teacher? What's that like? Unfortunately, all these teachings lead to death. There is no other possible outcome. Anyone who says differently is trying to sell you something. Yes, that's right. We walk straight into the death. We go to the places that scare us. We put on our armor and walk into the dragon's lair. Why? Because that is where the treasure is, silly. And do you know what that dragon is going to do? He's going to eat your ass. You're going to die so many deaths in that stinking dragon's den. You're going to come to the end of it so many times. It's going to be like Groundhog Day. Over and over again, you are going to get smoked. Can you see me there? There I am in that uniform. I was 27 years old and I was ready to serve. Ah, the things we learn about humanity when we put ourselves in service. Until we know the oppressor in ourselves, we make very poor liberators. This was one of Carl Jung's messages to his students. Maybe you also know what it is like to have your ass handed to you by the dragon. Maybe you know what it is like to choose the dangerous path. There is a surrender to the death that results in rebirth, enlightenment, realization of self. And this is what the great teacher has promised. We walk into death by faith. We face our fears courageously. As we release our attachments to this life, we are liberated. We understand now. We become that fearless one. Each death died, a seed planted. We become the resurrection, labor, and the expression of worth. It is quite simple. There is no religion to join, but you're welcome to join all that you like. You are curious, aren't you? That's a really good thing. We can choose to encourage one another in this very natural cycle of death and rebirth. Knowing this cycle in ourselves is how Christ is known in us. It's like this. There's a seed. It goes into the ground. It dies. It puts down roots into the soil, the rot, the decay, that which was going to kill us. We start drawing nourishment from the deaths that we've died. We put out leaves that begin to photosynthesize light, spinning light into sugar. Light, both wave and particle. Wave, the whole; particle, the individuated nature. It's very natural. We see this death and rebirth cycle expressed in everything and everyone. All things become the teacher of God. I do not speak of these things lightly, although I make jokes. And I do not lightly offend. But sometimes the offense is necessary to jolt us into awakening. I realize that I need to stop talking now because you should just watch this bird for the rest of this. Oh, little deaths. Labor and the expression of worth. This is a paper map, kids. In the eye of the hurricane, you are always still. Travelin' Trav is a singer, songwriter, poet, essayist, metaphysical therapist, teacher, healer, father, and an advocate for the homeless and neurodivergent. He is an encourager, a deeply flawed human being, and a somewhat reluctant, yet grateful, follower of the one that we have called Jesus. Trav's working practice is now an integration of his diverse career experiences, which includes time in the military, police, academia, and physical therapy. His personal journey to overcome genetically inherited trauma makes him an expert on mental health issues and trauma recovery. Humanity is making the leap into the non-dual. We are moving beyond the binary into a more fluid state. This is evident in our most recent explorations of gender identification. In the depths of Christ, there is no male or female. Travelin' Trav is developing educational materials which encourage the alignment of our rational and mystical senses. These educational tools will help us to manage this species-wide transition in our consciousness. Together, we are developing a new language to describe this caramelized, dystopian world in which we live. Because we are stumbling toward our next evolutionary threshold, we must learn to both sing the blues and transcend the oppression that inspired the blues in the first place. We rise above our tendency to manifest as either the oppressed or the oppressors. Labor and the Expression of Worth is Trav's compassionate philosophical container which creates the necessary inner space to hold multiple perspectives simultaneously. Labor and the expression of worth is a context in which we may align our work with one another around our deepest common values. We must educate, strengthen, and encourage one another. Strengthening a tribe member deepens a tribe. Deep tribes can feed the world. It is essential that the consciousness level of our species is deepened. We need a new perspective from which to solve the diverse and many problems that humanity has created for itself. In order to raise our consciousness, we must encourage deep communication between the generations. Trav is reaching out to the generations who came before him and after him. Thank you for supporting Travel and Trav by contributing monthly through Patreon. Every little bit helps. May we discover our deepest common values together and align our efforts appropriately. The future of our species depends on it. Strengthening a tribe member deepens a tribe. Depth tribes feed the world. Sincerely, Travis Irwin.